Welcome to Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. My name is Amber Ireland, and I'm here with my co-host, Jill Bucaro. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to Guided by Third Wheel. Today, Amber and I thought we'd do a discussion on the topic of grounding. So this weekend, Amber put together curriculum for a mini retreat. It's a 3-hour space to meditate, share, explore, learn, grow, all of those things. And this one, the topic was grounding. And I thought it was awesome. I'm actually feeling fairly grounded, which is good and unusual for me. But there were a lot of topics that I feel like was brought up in our discussion during the retreat and things that have my mind still going. So we thought we would share some of that now. So this is your mini retreat on grounding. One of the biggest takeaways for me was Amber saying relaxation does not equal grounding. Or maybe flip that on its head. Grounding does not equal relaxation. And that was interesting to me because before this retreat, when I conceptualized grounding, I was thinking about it in the space of relaxation. So Amber, I'm still wrapping my brain around it. So let's start with what makes grounding different than relaxation.
What we talked about in the retreat, how sometimes having things in order provides a relaxing environment. Having your home clean, the candles burning, things are picked up, things look aesthetically pleasing, the lights are down low, the music is on. That can be relaxing, but that is not always grounding. Grounding is when I'm grounded down into something that is stable and long-lasting. My house, though a home can be stable, may not be long-lasting. I can't count on that home to always be there, right? What I want to be doing in those relaxing moments is grounding down into myself. Right? Instead of grounding down into the cleanliness of my home or grounding down into the way that this space looks, because that's fleeting. Right? That's not grounding, that's relaxation. And relaxation is something that we go in and out of in our life.
And we create
We create relaxing moments, we create relaxing spaces. I like to think of them as those safe spaces that we can create. But when we're really talking about grounding, we're thinking about what am I doing to ground myself into my own safety. And when we were in the mini retreat, we were talking about that from the sense of grounding down into yourself, opposed to grounding into things that are external to you, because yourself always is with you, right?
When we were talking about that, I had this light bulb moment or parallel that I drew thinking about my journey and how it took me a long time to not search for things externally. External validation, external purpose and meaning, external senses of safety. To me, understanding grounding, like all of those things, is an inside job. Was an aha for me, or maybe a further integration. Oh yeah, I wasn't thinking of it in that way. Because before this retreat, I would have thought, yes, I need to be grounded. I need to work on grounding myself. But I don't know if I would have thought, even in the midst of this environment that I perceive as chaotic or not perfect, I can still ground, right? I can still be present. I can still check in with myself. The ability to ground does not hinge upon the external environment. I can ground no matter what. And you even said at one point, you said being present no matter what.
And grounding is not always comfortable. We talked about that. Being grounded does not mean always that you're relaxed, that you're comfortable, that that's a comfortable space to be in. Because sometimes what we're grounding into when we're grounding into the safety of ourselves is being present in situations that we just have to let be. That we just have to sit in for a moment and see what it really is, so that as we've grounded down into ourselves, use that power to figure out what we're going to do moving forward. But if we just try to bypass that altogether and say, how quick can I get out of this uncomfortable situation? That is not grounding, that is avoiding.
I think avoiding, that can even escalate to a dissociating behavior or numbing behavior.
And we talked about that too. You can do both things. I can ground sometimes, I can avoid sometimes, I I can be in relaxation sometimes. Maybe sometimes those things are going to overlap. And it's the same thing that we talk about when we talk about self-care actions and things that are numbing. Sometimes we have to use numbing behaviors because we can't use the self-care behaviors right now. But recognizing the difference between those and knowing that this is not grounding, that this is something that is different than that, and knowing how to get to the grounded place is what's important. It's not always important that you're always in the grounded place.
Right.
It's that I know how to get back to the grounded place, and the grounded place is the home within myself.
Understanding we're not going to be grounded 100% of the time.
No.
One, there's other things we need to be doing in that moment other than being grounded, but the reminder that we do have to be grounded sometimes. We need to check in and be aware of the times when maybe we're not grounded, when we're a little floaty, when we're a little spirally, when we're not checked in. Because another thing we talked about is we have to be grounded in order to make decisions in a thoughtful way. We have to be connected when we're doing that. We have to be grounded in the grand scheme of manifesting, getting what's ours. You also talked about, this is somewhat less related, but when we are grounded is when we really start to understand boundaries. When we're in a grounded place, it's going to be a lot harder for us to take on things that aren't ours, right? We are not going to take on somebody else's emotions. We are not going to conflate somebody's problems as our own problems.
Right.
When you're grounded, you're seeing with more clarity. You're more thoughtful. You're not spinning and up in that headspace.
And we talked about knowing where I end and you begin, right? Knowing where that boundary is on an emotional level, on an energetic level, knowing what is yours and what is mine. If I'm grounded, I know what is mine. When I'm ungrounded and I'm up here above my head and I'm in my thoughts and my feelings and I'm not bringing that back down into my body, it will meld with your thoughts and feelings, and I have a harder time discerning what is mine and what is yours. I get wrapped up in that with you. But when I can bring my own thoughts and feelings down into my body is when I can really see where I end and where you begin, and I can hold that boundary, not to make us separate, but to see that I am going to show up as me and I'm going to be here to witness you show up as you.
Exactly. When you are grounded, sometimes you can't see or imagine the whole big picture. Sometimes when we're up in our heads and we're thinking, we're visioning, we're dreaming,
Right.
things are all a little fuzzy, and some of those boundaries are missing. But when we're grounded, and we're thinking about decision making when grounded, we talked about taking the next step, do the next right thing. In a grounded place, you might not be sure of what the whole big plan is or what the whole big plan could be. Because I think when we're in our heads and a little floaty, we can think this is the grand design, this is the end game, this is what I want. But when you bring that vision or those dreams back to a grounded place, that gives you the ability to just do the next thing.
Right.
But when you're grounded, that next thing is intentional. It's more thoughtful than decisions that you might be making or actions you might be taking without being grounded, right? Because those might be more impulsive. They might be less goal directed. You might be more in a reactionary space.
Right. You also know from a grounded space, I'm going to take the next best step that I can see right now. And if that is wrong, or if that doesn't work out the way that my mind thought it was going to work, I know from a grounded place that I can trust myself to course correct.
Right.
That I have the power to do that. That I am in my own center of gravity and I can move forward no matter what.
That I can check back in and trust myself to make the right decision.
Right.
There's just so much more intention and deliberateness. Is that a word? I don't know. There's so much more of that in the grounded space. When I am thinking and acting in an ungrounded way, there's more anxiety. There's more uncertainty. It feels like my brain is worrying. It's going in a million different directions, and maybe I'm 10 steps ahead of where I really need to be, right? Because I'm anticipating everything that could go right and everything that could go wrong, because our brain has the ability to do that. Our brain has the ability to play out 15 different scenarios, and in doing that can overwhelm us with all of those different scenarios, so you move into a space of being paralyzed or being impulsive.
You don't feel safe.
You don't feel safe. You feel overwhelmed.
Right.
But that's the beauty of it, right? Because we have these awesome awesome brains and heads and ability to think all these crazy things. But we have to do that next step of bringing those wishes, thoughts, dreams back down and reevaluating them from a grounded space and thinking, what next?
I can't bring any of those big dreams that I have into reality until I bring them into my body and I'm grounded with them. Otherwise, they just stay up there as hopes and dreams.
Just floating.
Right?
Yes.
I've got to bring that down into my body. I've got to feel it in my body. I've got to know that I'm moving forward from a stable place within myself and that I trust myself to be able to make, I don't even want to say right choices. I trust myself to just take action when I know I need to take action. I don't need it to be right or wrong or somebody to pass a judgment on it. I just need to take the next step that I know is in alignment for me, whether anybody judges it as right or wrong.
For me, when I'm approaching a plan from that grounded place, it's easier to take that next step. I feel more confident. I feel more calm. I feel more secure. So these are all the reasons why grounding is important, why we need to ground, why we need to check in.
We left one out. Another
more.
reason why grounding is so important is because it regulates our nervous system.
Say more.
Grounding will help you regulate your nervous system in a way that takes you out of that fight, flight, or freeze. It brings you into that place of safety. So as you're grounding down into yourself and into something that is actually stable, your body knows, I am safe now. So I can act from that place of safety instead of from that place of fear or anxiety or anger. That's another reason why being grounded is so important, is because your nervous system gets way out of whack when you are ungrounded for long periods of time.
It is very possible, or at least for me, I can stay in ungrounded spaces for days, weeks, months. I definitely think that grounding is something that has to be intentional, that we could be riding the crazy ass roller coaster of our own racing thoughts, of picking up on other people's emotions, of constantly reacting without checking in for a really, really long time.
Yeah, and it'll cause physical stress. And when you're out of alignment, you will feel physically ill. You will be more tired. That's why it's so important that you find those grounded moments and you find ways to ground, because it does create a physical response of illness in the body.
Well, it's like you were saying before, you likely are going to spend more time in that crisis response mode, right? In that cortisol mode, which we know has not only implications for our mental health and sense of safety and well-being and calm, but also for our physical body.
Right.
Those are all the reasons now of why grounding is important. Of, whoa, let me rein this in. Let me try to figure out where I'm at, how I'm feeling. Let me make decisions with some intention. We've talked about why that is important for us. What we probably should have started with is, how does one do this elusive grounding? How does one ground?
Right. What I'm going to say is it's different for everyone.
Okay.
You may hear people say, oh, well, the way to ground is you have to go outside and you have to be with nature. You have to put your feet in the dirt, or you find grounding through deep breathing. When you're in the social service field, we know a lot about grounding that we use when we meet with clients, grounding to time and place when people are having a hard time. All of those are grounding techniques that you can use, but you have to find what works for you. And really the common denominator here, the thing that you want to look for, is you want to ground down into things that are stable and long lasting. You don't want to ground into things that are fleeting. I don't want to ground myself into another person.
Sure.
I don't want to say, oh, when I feel ungrounded, I just go and I'm around this person and they are going to ground me.
And they help me feel safe.
They could help you feel safe. They could help you feel relaxed. They are not grounding for you because they can leave. They cannot be there when you need it. You need to be grounding into things that you have access to all the time and that are stable and aren't fleeting. That's why grounding into the earth. We are all going to have the earth. No matter where you are on the earth. You can imagine yourself grounding into the earth. If that works for you, ground into the earth. You can ground into yourself. You can find your own sense of power. We talked about grounding into the hara space, which is around your belly area. If you think about the chakra system, you're looking at those first three, the root, sacral, and the solar, right in that area. Okay. And being able to ground into that within the body can be helpful. You can ground into your spiritual beliefs. Those aren't going anywhere. You can ground down into your own values, into yourself in ways where you're trusting yourself. It really is individualized to the person. Whatever is going to work for you. And here's the thing, that can evolve over time. As I shared, when I used to do grounding, what I would ground into was the earth. That was my visualization. I did deep breathing and I visualized myself grounding into the earth. That I was growing roots, that I was part of the earth, that the earth was holding me and supporting me. And that was very grounding for me. And then I found that over time, it was better for me to ground into myself. And I can see myself as connected to the earth, and I can see myself as connected to my spiritual beliefs, and I can see myself in all of those connections, but my grounding is internal. My grounding does not require any external activations, and I ground down into the energy of myself.
I like that. To me, that involves some visualization, because for some people, grounding, like you said, it literally means walking outside, putting their bare feet on the earth. But I still think there's like a visualization and a self-talk component to that. Here I stand. I am Amber with my feet on this earth. This is my body. This is who I am. There has to be that kind of piece to it. So I feel like sometimes people feel grounded in meditation. For me, I hate meditating. If you know me or you listen to this, you know that about me. There's certain passages in different books that I feel like will get me to that place, will help me come back into alignment. While Amber was talking, I got this thought, and I was Googling this thing on touch trees. In Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, she has a bunch of short chapters on different topics, and one of them is touch trees. And to me, this is grounding. And this is one of the things I read when I'm feeling lost, I'm feeling scattered, and I'm trying to come back to myself. So I'm going to read it for everybody. A touch tree is one recognizable, strong, large tree that becomes the lost one's home base. So this is if you are out in the woods and you're lost and you're trying to figure out how to get back on the path. She can venture out into the woods again as long as she returns to her touch tree. Again and again. This perpetual returning will keep her from getting too far gone. She goes on to say, I've spent much of my life lost in the woods of pain, relationships, religion, career, service, success, and failure. Looking back on those times, I can trace my lostness back to a decision to make something outside of myself my touch tree. An identity, a set of beliefs, an institution, aspirational ideals, a job, another person, a list of rules, approval, an old version of myself. Now when I feel lost, I remember that I am not the woods. I am my own tree. So I return to myself and re-inhabit myself. As I do, I feel my chin rise and my body straighten. I reach deeply into the rich soil beneath me, made up of every girl and woman I've ever been, every face I've loved, every love I've lost, every place I've been, every conversation I've had, every book I've read and song I've sung, everything, crumbling and mixing and decomposing underneath. Nothing wasted. My entire past there, holding me up and feeding me now. All of this too low for anyone else to see, just there for me to draw from. Then up and up, all the way to my branches, my imagination, too high for anyone else to see, reaching beyond, growing towards the light and warmth. Then in the middle, the trunk, the only part of me entirely visible to the world. Pulpy and soft inside, just tough enough on the outside to protect and hold me, exposed and safe. I am as ancient as the earth I'm planted in and as new as my tiniest bloom. I am my own touch tree, strong, singular, alive, still growing. I have everything I need beneath me, above me, inside me.
That's beautiful.
Isn't that nice? That is one of the two things that for me, when I'm feeling lost, when I'm hyper fixated, when I've lost myself in a relationship or a job or an identity that maybe I'm idealizing, that helps me bring me back to me. Sometimes, and we touched a little bit on this, we don't always like ourselves. Sometimes we are our own least favorite person, and we can feel irritated with past versions of ourselves, but that's still a part of who we are. And when we want to carve out those pieces or get rid of those pieces, that's when we begin splintering, right? And really, to be grounded, I like how she talks about bringing all of that back in. That is all a part of me. It doesn't mean that's all of who I am, but it is all a part of me. And just grounding down in that and envisioning myself in that way.
And all parts of us have gotten us to where we are now. Some of it is the fertilizer, right? And some of it are things that we keep with us and show proudly to everyone, right? But it's all part of us. It all got us to the space that we're in now. We can't be who we are today without all of the past versions of who we were.
Exactly. When we're really trying to check in with ourselves, we have to be okay with all parts of us, because we're never going to be fully grounded when we're splintered into 100 different pieces. That visualization really helps me. Meditating is hard for me. So being able to read something or listen to something that is guided can be super useful to me. I hear from a lot of people that they feel really grounded when they go out and take a hike and walk in nature. Another thing that I do too, which this might sound really crazy, is sometimes I forget that my body is me. Jen Hatmaker said once, I've always thought of my body as an unfortunate container. I think I've said that on here, right? That what I really am is my brain and my heart, right? And then I have this weird meat suit that Amber and I talk about that I zip on up over me. But this body is a part of me, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes what I'll do as a grounding exercise is I will literally lay there and I will just try to feel parts of, these are my feet, and I can feel them. I'll look down and be, these are my hands. These are nobody's hands but mine.
Right.
Because I think sometimes I can get so ungrounded that I really just am existing in a space outside of my body.
Yeah.
And I think of some of the things that we do when we're in a stressed place. Overeating, undereating, not sleeping. Of course, it's easy for us to overeat and undereat because we're not living in our bodies.
Right.
We're not listening to our body's signals of, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, holy shit, stop eating, I feel terrible, I need some sleep. That to me is another clue when some of those more normal body functions start to feel like compulsions or they start to feel forgotten.
Right.
How do I check back in and be like, holy crap, these legs are mine?
Right. And just physical touch, touching yourself, right? Being like, hold your own hands, put your hands on your legs, put your hands on your belly, feel yourself breathing, and really recognize that you can come back down into your body. This is a safe space to be.
Right. She's here waiting for you. Come on back.
Come on back with all of those hopes and dreams or whatever it is you've been thinking with, because we are strong enough to sit with that. Exactly. We can sit with whatever it is that has been going on in the mind, all of the chatter, good, bad, ugly, whatever. We have the power to sit with that.
Yes.
And determine what we're going to do moving forward from a grounded space, instead of ignoring that we have a body and staying up in the mind and never being able to integrate the two to move forward.
You're just living in the swirly twirly place. And I mean, you can swirl forever. What I've learned in my life is I can ruminate on something for fucking ever. Forever and ever. Will I really ever make meaningful progress? Will I really be able to have it come to resolution? If I don't check back in with, who are you, Jill? All of your experiences, bring that here and use that. Sit for a minute, like you said, with the swirly twirly. And what's crazy is that every time it's like, oh, of course this is the next step. Of course this is what I should do. I've lived in my brain for 3 weeks. It's fucking obsessing. And then I take the time, even though I know I needed to, but of course it takes me a month to finally do it. And I sit down with myself for 5 minutes. I'm like, oh, duh.
And then let me do that.
Let me just do it.
Yeah. And it's crazy when you get to that place of when you just know. When you ground back down into your body and you think about what it is and you come from a stable place and you look at things for what they really are instead of what you want them to be or how you think they should be. When you look at what's really happening and you take inventory, it's like, well, of course this is what I'm going to do. And you're just so resolute about it. And I know that everyone that is listening has had those moments where you knew exactly what you needed to do and you look back on decisions that you made and actions that you took and you're like, I don't know why I was so sure about that, but I was so fucking sure and I just went for it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it was because you brought it back down into your body and it was aligned. And sometimes it happens unintentionally because sometimes as we're learning to do this, we don't know what we don't know, and our body has to give us a little bit to be like, here's what it feels like.
Right.
Why don't you try this?
Try this.
Right? When you can feel it in your body and you know from that grounded space, it is much easier to take action than it is while you are trying to work out every last detail in your head.
And you feel better about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine most people, we just spend so much time in our own heads, and it can be a really exhausting place to be. Part of that is just the human experience, right? Humans have brains unlike any other creature on earth. That's what makes us humans. But it's understanding that we don't have to live in that space all the time.
And when we live in the space there, it's so easy. If you think about times where you've been swirling on something, you're not very grounded, there's constant chatter, anxiety, how easy is it for somebody to push you off kilter? So easy. They could just look at you sideways.
Yes.
And you're in a meltdown moment. Why is everything so hard? I don't know what to do, whatever. But when you come from that grounded space, when you take action from being grounded and somebody looks at you some kind of way, or somebody comes up to you and is like, you are being absolutely insane, you will look at them and be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but this is what I'm doing, with such conviction.
Yes, because you know that you're aligned. You know what is right for you because you're coming from a space of wisdom, not of anxiety. That makes all the difference.
And it's not the wisdom of knowing how it's all going to turn out. It's wisdom enough to know that I can handle whatever comes out of this.
Right, and I can be trusted to take care of myself.
Right. I'm
to
safe
do what
here.
is for my highest good. I can trust myself. And when we're not grounded, it's harder to trust ourselves.
Well, because
can't.
we're enmeshed with everything else that's going on around us. We don't have strong boundaries to know where we end and everything else begins. And so it's too much to manage.
Exactly. And so that's why we feel so unsure. When you're back in alignment, when you're back grounded, sometimes it's still hard. It still hurts. We're doing things that we can tell are causing us to stretch and grow, but it doesn't feel impossible. It doesn't feel unmanageable. And like everything we talk about on here, easier said than done.
For sure.
For me, my takeaway from this retreat and from this conversation is to try to be more aware of when is the last time I have really felt grounded? When is the last time I have felt aligned? What can I do today just to check in, get back inside my body, even if for a short amount of time, just to help me check back in?
Right.
Do you want to pull a card for us?
Sure. We're going to pull from the Sisterhood of the Seers Oracle. And this is a new deck for me. I can't remember if I've pulled on the podcast yet with it. So as we do, let's take a deep breath together and release. And we'll set the intention that you'll receive exactly what you need from this podcast and from this card pull. And hopefully you will see some ways in your life where you can add some more grounding and stability. Well, it looks like we got two here. So the first one that came out is your presence is requested. So, we talked about that with being grounded. We have to be present to be grounded.
You gotta check in.
You gotta check in with your body. You have to be present in the moment. And being grounded isn't about everything being perfect and relaxed. It's about being with what is. And being grounded in myself in the situation that I find myself in. Yes. Not trying to make that different than it is. Not trying to necessarily work that out and control it. But just be there and be present. So I think that part there is pretty spot on. And then the second card we got is the joy in the in-between. And how do we find that joy and that peace and that happiness in the in-between, where we are coming back to being grounded and learning how to take action.
Yes.
So the joy of the in-between, being willing to sit in those uncomfortable spaces, in those grounded spaces, and realize this is really the meat of what I need right right now. This is the healing that I need right now. This is the wisdom that I'm going to gain right now that is going to lead to my next inspired action.
Right? It's that sacredness of the pause that we talk about sometimes, right? And we need that pause to respond and not react. We need that pause to take it all in, to integrate it, to then go. So often we forget about the wisdom that lives in the in-between. All right, guys. Well, thank you for the conversation, as always, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. We would be honored if you would like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, be well.